Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode on the channel and beginning of this new series that I've invented called Flavours of, where we look at the main flavours of a particular country or a region. Today we're going to be starting with Italy, arguably the country of the most culinary impact in the whole world. And we'll be talking about the 6 main ingredients in Italian food and talking about how you can incorporate these ingredients into your own cooking. Now, please note we'll be talking about flavours and extras to go with the food rather than, meals themselves. Let's start with the main flavour, and that is garlic. Before we start, let's talk about the different forms of garlic quickly. So the 3 main ones are plain garlic, garlic granules, and chewed garlic, also known as lazy garlic. So starting off with my personal favourite, this is normal grown garlic. This is probably the one that you're most familiar with, so from farm to plate with no extra ingredients, and because of that it's the most authentic one. So it has these cloves, and these cloves come in a bowl, and to use it you pull the desired amount of cloves from the bowl, peel off the skin and simply use it like that. But it's also really versatile. You can leave it plain for simplicity, you can chop it in small sections or chop it finely depending on your needs, and you can really choose with that. The main positive of this one is it's really cheap, and that's what makes it such a prominent ingredient in world cooking. But let's talk about garlic granules next. Now let's take simplicity to another level. So it comes as a seasoning and it gets stored in the seasoning containers rather than in the fridge or wherever. It does come at an added cost, literally, due to rising food costs. It's meant that it's actually now quite expensive, to be fair. But make sure you don't confuse garlic granules with garlic salt. And finally, let's talk about lazy garlic or garlic paste. Now, this is a good concept, but unfortunately didn't turn out very well. Now, most of these have some sort of added salt or sugar, water, and vinegar to get the consistency. Then it's filled with all kinds of things like oils, stabilisers, acidity regulators, acids, and that kind of stuff. Top it off, it's actually significantly more expensive than your alternatives, and I find it a lot weaker than the traditional garlic. So while it is easier, I would urge you just use the normal garlic in your cooking. Now in Italy, the main use of garlic is to complement kind of carb-based meals such as garlic bread, garlic and potatoes, garlic pasta, etc. But it can also be used to flavour meat such as chicken and lamb typically, and seafood such as prawns. Either way, it is a very cheap and easy ingredient to implement into your cooking. Second ingredient I want to talk about is onions. Now, for simplification, we'll be talking about onions kind of in general, those being red and white, but also including shallots and all those different other types of onions that come under the same category. Now, onions is something I love to cook with. They're so easy to complement meat dishes and to bring out new flavours. They can be bought cheaply in shops, usually next to the garlic actually, and once the skin is peeled off, you can simply chop it and use it. Now, like the garlic, you can get them in granules, but you can also buy them frozen, which is something I like doing. It's a lot more cost effective and also, clear space in the fridge or cupboards or wherever by storing it in the freezer. Typically the onions get cooked and are added after the meat has started cooking, as they don't take as long to cook. Now let's take these tacos for example. You can see the beef mince goes in and with some seasoning, and after a while the onions are added. These onions get cooked until they're caramelised or dark brown. But they also go well with sausages as well. If you haven't tried that, I will advise you to try that. They are very nice. But I think what onions are most known for is onion rings. While they're not strictly Italian, I'm going to show you how to make them. And the concept is simple. Just chop some onions, dip them in some breadcrumbs or batter, whichever you prefer, and dip them then into some hot oil until golden, set aside to cool, like you can see now. I'm going to cut the onions into small rings and then, like I said, dip them into batter. They're in there for only a few minutes and then I leave them to rest so the oil can come out. The ingredients are on screen and so it's a recipe if you're interested. But the next ingredient is the only fruit appearing on the list, and that is a lemon, a classic Italian ingredient. But it's important to note that the lemon itself usually isn't eaten, it's too sour for most people. But what it is commonly used for is its flavour, particularly the juice that comes out of it. You can actually buy this juice separately and it does the purpose while being cheaper and minimising waste. So let's talk about the flavours. So lemon has commonly been associated with fish, even here in the UK. But recently, however, lemon has been introduced into other meats, mainly chicken actually. Lemon chicken with rice is a favourite for many people, myself included, and it is easy to see why. But lemon juice can be put with other things though, mainly baking. There are endless recipes out there for lemon kind of themed bakes. You can make the classic lemon drizzle cake, as well as sorbets, curds, cheesecakes, biscuits, so on. You can make homemade lemonade, lemon, coke, or whatever. There's a lot of drinks you can use lemon with. And I know, in the summer it's very refreshing, in the time we're in now, mid-July. So yeah, make sure you incorporate some lemon flavoured stuff into your diet. The fourth ingredient will be tomatoes, or more specifically the beef tomatoes. Now these are the big tomatoes that you commonly see put in burgers. They can be bought in most supermarkets, or you can find them on street markets, and you can buy them singly or in a pack. Now the possibilities of these or any tomatoes, are endless. Many people buy them in a tin, chopped or whole, but you can also leave them raw and put them in salads with other veg. Then you can add whatever veg or dressing you like to these salads. Of course, these can be made into a tomato sauce, which is very popular amongst Italian dishes, such as, meatballs or soup or anything like that. Another thing I've seen is that you can put these big tomatoes on the barbecue and actually grill them so you get that charcoal flavour and the black kind of burnt lines through the middle. But like I mentioned earlier, these are good for putting in burgers, and that's because they have a really large surface area, but they can also be cut quite flat so they fit nicely into that burger bun, like you can see on the screen now. You notice that a lot of these Italian and particularly Mediterranean ingredients in general is that they're very healthy in comparison to other cuisines from around the world. And the final ingredient we're going to be talking about is cheese. Now there is an endless amount of cheeses available, obviously, so I'll not be listing every single type. But we will be disregarding cheddar cheese, as that is English, and feta cheese, as surprisingly that is Greek and not Italian. But the main Italian cheeses are mozzarella, ricotta, mascarpone, parmigiano, them kind of things. All of these have different ways of being made, they have different aging durations. Some of these use even different types of milk from different kinds of animals, so they do have a lot of differences. Now I don't really eat much cheese, so I'm not in a position to tell you which cheese is best. What I will say is you should try different ones. Some have a more creamy taste, whereas some have more kind of crumbly texture. Find one that you like and experiment with it. Like I mentioned earlier, there are hundreds and hundreds of different cheeses to try, and since you're immersing yourself in Italian cuisine, you may as well try and expand your variety. Now, Italian cheeses in particular have gained a reputation for being able to kind of significantly transform a dish, so if you haven't tried any of them yet, I would advise you to do so.